Now, I'm not personally familiar with Paul and his work, so I'm going to have to rely on him to introduce himself, but I am aware of that acronym at the bottom, NICTA. They do a lot of amazing things, so I expect that he'll be able to tell us a secret sauce from the bleeding edge of Australian IT research. So without further ado, can we give him a very warm welcome?
Okay, thank you. I'm not necessarily on the bleeding edge of things. We have researchers for that. I'm an engineer. I get things done and make them work. So I'm talking today about government dashboards and open data. So the few governments around Australia at the state and federal level are starting to take open data seriously and making data available in open formats that people can consume and do interesting things with. Data.gov.au is the federal government one. It's a CKAN instance, which is a CKAN is a open data repository written in Python that acts as an index to various data sets, provides metadata on them. You can also actually act as a repository as well. There's also National Map, which is another NICTA project that I'm not going to talk a huge amount about today, but if you haven't seen it, you really should. It's very cool. nationalmap.gov.au. It's a 3D rendered 3D map of the world, rendered in the browser. So it's all written in JavaScript, running in WebGL in your browser, and it can pull down data sets from anywhere. It'll talk to CKAN, so any geospatial data set on data.gov.au, it can plot on a map for you. So it's very nice. But I'm going to talk today about dashboards, because dashboards are sexy. This is the cockpit of the space shuttle. And when people see things like that, there's two reactions. They either say, "Oh my God, that's so cool, I want to go," or they say, "It's too much information, I can't cope." And which end? Most people have a bit of both, actually. But which end of that spectrum dominates really comes down to the good design and good user experience, research and practice. And at NICTA, we've got a really great UX team. That's not me. I work on the other side, which tends to look more like that. Yeah, so when you've got a lot of data, a lot of information coming from a lot of different places, there's a lot of wiring to keep sane. So NICTA got involved with dashboards firstly with this project for the New South Wales Premier. It was a right place, right time thing. One of our business people was at a meeting with the New South Wales Premier. He comes from a finance background where they're big on dashboards, and he was saying, "Oh, I wish I had a dashboard with all of New South Wales on one screen and I could just see what was happening." And she said, "Oh, we can do that." And then what happened then was it went to the UX team I mentioned earlier, and they prepared a lovely mock-up, which I'll show you now. So just to give, so this is, I'll give some of the key design features in here I'll point out. So they're got a bunch of widgets there. They're logically grouped by theme, so we've got sort of transport on the far left, we've got some environment ones down the bottom. We can expand widgets for more information, so this air pollution one you can see has been pulled down to give us a bit more information. And you can provide links back to the original source website if you want a bit more information. But the point is it's all there. We've got targets, so you can see what the number's supposed to be, and traffic lights to tell you if you're meeting those targets or not. So that was the mock-up. I saw that and said, "Oh, I know how you do the build, how you back end that." And before I knew it, I was building it. And so from there, we did a prototype, which I'm not supposed to show you, but I might give you a quick peek later on. And the final version of that's now up for tender, which we're hoping we'll get. But did I mention that dashboards were sexy? When people heard that the New South Wales Premier had a fly in his soup, I'm in a dashboard, they all wanted one. So we've got projects underway for the Digital Transformation Office, and that'll probably be the first one to go live. There's also one working for the Greater Sydney Commission that we're working on at the moment too. And we have interest from other state governments as well, from other New South Wales government agencies. All the New South Wales ministers want one. It's taking off. So how do I do the back end for something like this? Python, of course. That's why I'm here talking to you about it. It's Django based. The front end is basically pure JavaScript talking to an API that's served by Django. The maintenance and administration user interfaces are all built in Django. And I've built it using a sort of introspective, metadata-driven philosophy for the data storage and processing. I'll talk a bit more about that as I get into it. So there's a quick architecture diagram. We've got a database in the middle serving data out through the API to our to the browsers. We can do admin tools, admin tasks straight inside. We also have these loader modules that speak out to other open data APIs that the government has, or sometimes closed APIs, to pull the data in and munge it down to a single metric or a couple of metrics and a traffic light, and store it in the database ready for the API to serve. We wanted to support different dashboard views so that people could see different sets of widgets depending on what they were interested in. So initially we're looking at location, whether they wanted sort of national data or state data or just Sydney, regional data, just data for Sydney, or for the Greater Sydney dashboard we're looking at various sub-regions of Sydney, north, south, west, central, whatever. We've talked about having different frequency views. We haven't really done that much with that yet, but the infrastructure's there, so we might have a real-time view, might have a monthly view, just to show data at those levels. And then, probably what we're calling a theme view. So, I want to see everything. I just want to see transport data. I just want to see environment data, whatever. We have access control for those, so that you can, maybe some users, some users would only be able to see certain views, and some views would be publicly available, without login. So this was all in the original design, and I've implemented it, but a lot of these features are not really being heavily used in the prototypes to date. Widgets. So each of those little boxes we saw on that diagram is a widget. What does a widget consist of from the back end? It's a metadata description of the widget data. So it's saying there's what fields we have, whether they're numbers or strings, how many decimal points you should display, whether you should put a percentage sign on the end, all that sort of thing, and whether you need a traffic light to go with it, trend arrow, whatever it is, and also some presentation hints. What template do you want to use to draw this widget? Then, so the way widgets relate to views is I have a family of widgets. So overall, there's a family which basically says what the title of the widget is going to be, not much more. We have a set of definitions, which is that actual metadata, and then we have a declaration. So you can declare that this is my C history coming in. This definitions, declarations, difference. So the idea is you can have one widget might be displayed in multiple views, but it's the same widget. Some views might have the same widget. Other views might have a slightly different widget, but they're still conceptually the same widget, but they have slightly different data in them. So that lets you sort of handle all of that. So the actual widget data then, the actual data that gets pulled down comes down to a set of statistics. So each individual metric is what I call a statistic. It's either a number or a string or a list of numbers or a list of strings. We can also associate traffic light colour codes with a statistic. We can have icon libraries. I think we see the weather down the bottom, so the little cloudy thing for the symbol for the weather or the sun shining is this icon library. So you say, I'm using this icon from this library for this widget today. And trend arrows. Is this number trending up, trending down, holding steady? We also have support for graphs, line graphs, histograms, pie charts, and various variations on that. We also want to start displaying some geospatial data. We'll probably hook into National Map for that. That's again been on the plan since day one, but hasn't actually happened yet. So we've got a few different types of widgets. Yes, we have widget template, which just displays a single statistic, or maybe a single main statistic and some secondary statistics. We have ones that have two major statistics. We have lists. We can arrange our stats in a grid or a table, and various things. When I show some examples, you'll get a clearer idea of that. You also have some fancy ones now, tag clouds and text templates, so you can say, X percentage of this is doing Y, and you can update that X and Y as part of your data feed. So I'll just show you a couple of examples. So on the left-hand side, we've got some two widgets from the New South Wales dashboard, and on the right-hand side, we've got some widgets from the DTO dashboard. First thing you notice here that we're tile-based. So with the New South Wales dashboard, we just had each widget was a single tile, unless you expanded them, in which case you've got an expansion tile. But this has actually got two tiles displaying at once with a DTO. But the interesting thing, so this one here and this tile here are actually the same. From the back end, they're the same. They're both a single main statistic tile. The difference is in the front end, pretty design guys making it look nice. Similarly here, that's a two main statistic one, or it can look like that. On the back end, it's the same. It's just two chunks of data that get displayed out. So let's have a look at the implementation, I guess. The API has only a handful of methods. The first set of methods is basically asking what views are available to me, what can we see. So for those three things I mentioned, location, frequency, and theme, there are API methods that just return as simple as that, really. A user displayable label and a identifier to using URLs. Once you've got a view, you can say what widgets are there for that view. And we see the full definition of each of those widgets. And that's just some example of the sort of thing you see. These are actually describing the individual statistics. So there's the label. This is actually the one we saw before, with the number of financial year tax returns submitted to date. It's a number. We put a percentage on the end. It's zero precision, so there's no decimal point. All that information's there. And the third thing, the other important thing that's in that is it tells you how often to refresh the data for the widget. So you say refresh it every 60 seconds. Every 60 seconds you'll have to call this API. The front end needs to call this API, which is to get the actual data. And that is really just a fairly simple dump of the data to be pumped into that widget. It knows how to present it because it's already read the definition. So on the other side, we've got to pull all this data in from all sorts of different sources. We can either do manual entry. I've got some a nice little Django thing that builds some dynamic forms based on that metadata, so that you can enter in the exact data you need for each particular widget by hand. That's pretty painful. People get sick of that pretty quick. They want to do things quicker. They want to either upload data in a CSV or a spreadsheet. So I've got a framework for defining a spreadsheet format, so you can just upload data in that format and it'll go straight into your widget. Or we can have an automated load that will get called, that'll be called on a schedule, and we'll hit some external API and pull the data down and process it. The loader module is just Python code, so we can do pretty much anything, and I've done pretty much everything. From pulling down CSV and spreadsheets from CKAN instances, hitting proper mature APIs that are serving XML or JSON, or in the worst case scenario, scraping websites. But we don't like doing that if we can avoid it, for obvious reasons. So issues and obstacles. Firstly, lack of APIs and immature APIs, as I said, and lack of budget to do them. It's, oh yeah, we've got that data and we could give it to you, but oh, how are we going to get it to you? Oh, we'd have to write a server. Oh, we'd have to, yeah, maybe in 6 months we could build that for you. Loose adherence to standards. Several times things have broken because I've seen characters appear in JSON files that aren't supposed to appear in JSON files. Erratically formatted data, poor data quality, I'll talk more about that in a minute, and lack of genuine buy-in to the whole open data philosophy, which I'll talk about in a minute too. So here's some examples of some of the data issues I've faced. A whole bunch of data sets that are nominally the same, but don't actually match up. How many mutually divergent population projection sets does the New South Wales government maintain for planning purposes? Anyone want to take a guess?
Too many.
I know of 3. I suspect there might be more. Geographic aggregation to different levels. That's okay. It's a pain, but it's at least you'd at least think they'd be consistent about it. I mean, we're dealing with with LGAs, local government areas. They have numbers defined for these things. They have ID numbers for the LGAs. Do they use them? No. They'll just use non-standard names. They'll misspell names. They'll write Sydney City Council in 3 different ways in different files. I have loaders where the top half of the file is just mappings saying if they say this, they mean this. Data published as annually in what are obviously hand-prepared reports, spreadsheets with a different format every year. That happens. XLX.zip files. So zipping a zip file for extra compression. SLSX is just an XML file in a zip file. So there's really not a lot of point in putting that in another zip file. But, they do it. Philosophical ones. I've actually had people say that. If we publish the raw data, people will do things with the data that we can't control. Yeah, that's the point. We can't publish that until we get the final confirmed figures at the end of the financial year. No, 90% accurate data is better than no data. And a reluctance to commit to targets. Oh, we don't want the traffic light to ever be red. It's like, oh yeah, you can go orange, but no, not red's bad. And insistence on confusing and opaque metrics. We had one, I probably shouldn't identify the department, but we had this great data from them where there was essentially events per day. We knew how many events were happening per day. We actually knew how many events were happening per hour. And originally we were reporting that as number of events per hour, and they didn't like that. It went from number of events per hour to number of events per day to total number of events since November 2013. That's really not helpful, guys. So future plans, as I said, national map integration is very much on the agenda. Allowing widgets and simple loaders to be created by non-developer admin staff would be great. So some sort of template stuff so that people can roll up their own widgets quickly. At the moment, it's something I really have to do, or someone with a bit of expertise in the system has to do. And we'd like a more reusable, reskinnable front end. The back end, as I've said, is quite flexible. We're using the same back end on all these projects, but at the moment we've got 3 different front ends. We would like to have a single front end that we can just reskin and reuse for all of them. I'm nearly finished. I'll just come back to that, but I'll just... the other thing I want to say, just to show that my work with dashboards goes beyond governments and open data. I brew beer, and this is the dashboard in my brewery. So, and as you can see, the wiring really does look like that. I'm not really supposed to show you them because they haven't gone live yet, but if we turn off the cameras, I can actually show you the live dashboards if you'd like to see them.